Hello again, folks. This is Lee Thurburn, and I'm live stream Lee, trying to stream live. Having a few technical issues here with the stream. I am waiting for my guest Bob Hampton to rejoin us, so I'm just going to kick this back off again. I want to start though by first. I've got a friend I want to give a shout out to. His name is Dan Nelson, and Dan has a company called Dan Sisters Genealogy. Dan is a genealogist. Yeah, kind of go figure. That's why I called it Dan Sisters Genealogy. And we do not have a stream to LinkedIn yet again. I do not know what is going on here. It's kind of hard to do a scheduled broadcast when your primary distribution channel doesn't pick up your stream. Well, hey, what are we going to do about this? How do we fix this? There's an issue on LinkedIn's end. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to cut this broadcast into pieces. So I'm going to change this up. We're going to shorten this and we're going to cut it into a couple of pieces. And I'm just going to post it directly onto LinkedIn as two little segments, and with an apology to those of you that were trying to tune in. This is, again, the second time this has happened. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So let me go ahead and just do that. So I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Dan Nelson. He's got a company called Dan Sisters Genealogy. He is, of course, a genealogist. And Dan sends out a newsletter twice a month, and I got one last weekend. I got to tell you, I look forward to this newsletter. There's a bunch of newsletters I received that I never signed up for. Most of those I never even opened. Dan's I open. I'm going to tell you why. Because he has interesting characters and he's a master storyteller. Dan does research on people's lives, and in the process, he uncovers a lot of really interesting people and really interesting historical facts. And so when I get these newsletters, there's no telling what's going to be in it. And there's always interesting stuff. So I look forward to it because I'm a little bit of a history buff. If you like that kind of stuff, you're going to enjoy Dan's newsletter. So go to livestreamlee.com, and over on the right-hand side, you'll see some buttons. There's one that says Dan Nelson, Dan Sisters Genealogy. Click on that button. And then on Dan's website, you can sign up for his newsletter down at the bottom. If you're interested to do that, it's a great newsletter. You can always unsubscribe if you quit liking it or decide it's not your cup of tea. But it's interesting stuff. So anyway, there you go. Dan Nelson, Dan Sisters Genealogy. All right. I'm now going to get back into what I wanted to talk about, which is the inflation. So in 2000, I owned a couple of Quiznos, and we made Italian classic sub sandwiches, and they were $1.99. I was in one the other day in North Dallas, and it was $6.37. That's a 320% price increase. So then I started thinking, as I was thinking about that, I started thinking, well, what other things have gone up? And so I looked into the price of homes. And the price of homes in the United States in that same 21 years has gone from an average home price in the United States of $132,000, from an average price of $132,000 to an average price now of $305,000. So here's the thing. Why is that house so much more expensive? Has the house gone up in value? Well, of course not. The house is the same house. The sandwich is the same sandwich. What's happened is the dollar is worth less. I don't mean worthless, it's worth less. So why is the dollar worth less? Well, the dollar is worth less because of two things: inflation and devaluation. Now, inflation and devaluation are kind of two flip sides of the same coin, but when I talk about devaluation, what I'm talking about is devaluation relative to foreign currencies. Now, this is really important if you're in a business, because if you're in a business, a couple of things are going on. Number one, your prices are increasing. And when your prices are increasing, you have to raise your prices. Otherwise, you're getting caught in a margin squeeze. You know, it used to be that making $100 an hour was a great thing. Nowadays, $100 an hour is kind of almost, I mean, it's a little better than minimum wage, don't get me wrong, but still it's not going to cover a whole lot of costs unless you can bill out 2,000 of those hours in a year. So the point I'm getting around to here is as a business, you're caught in a cost squeeze when prices are going up. In the last year, the US dollar has devalued relative to foreign currencies a little over 7%, close to 7.5%. Now, the primary reason for this devaluation is probably due to the stimulus money that the US government's pumped into the market because of COVID. All right, well, what's the impact of that? Well, flooding the market with money makes everybody feel richer, gives them the ability to pay their bills. But what happened? Did we actually create more wealth, or did we just pump more money into the market? Well, the answer is we just pump more money into the market. Well, when you have more money floating around, that money's not worth as much because there's more of it without an actual increase in wealth being created in some form or fashion. So when you have more of something, it becomes worth less. It becomes more of a commodity. Well, in the last year, the US dollar has gone down relative to foreign currencies over 7%. Well, with another $2 trillion being pumped into the economy, that's likely to continue. And over the next 12 to 24 months, the cumulative impact of all this money we pumped in could easily be 15, 20, maybe as much as 25%. Now, I don't know how to predict. I'm not a macroeconomist, I'm not an economist. I'm just a regular guy that understands and sees what's going on around him, okay? So my costs are going up, your costs are going up. Well, what are we going to do as business people? So I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about how you can have an impact on that. So there's a couple of things that you can do as business people when your costs are going up. First of all, there are two different fundamental concepts here. One is price increase strategies, and the other is cost containment strategies. And so from a price increase strategies perspective, the things that you can do basically fall into the following sort of groupings. First of all, you can explain it to your customers. If your customers like you, they don't want you to go out of business. They like doing business with you. And if you can help them understand why you're having to raise your prices, chances are pretty good that they're going to go along with it and not abandon you. And plus, the fact is, all your competitors are probably going to have to raise their prices as well. So you're not the only one doing it. Now, you also can focus on value, which means have your messaging talk about the value that your customers are getting. You might be able to find ways to enhance the value, give them a little bit more. It's like the 13th donut, the baker's dozen. Give them a little bit more so that the value is still there. You can gradually and incrementally increase your costs. Think about what real estate residential properties, multifamily properties and storage units do every year, sometimes every 6 months, a little bit of a bump. I had a storage unit for about 10 years. I love my junk. I paid for 10 years to store this stuff. Started off $125, ended up about $250. Gradually, it just became more expensive to store my stuff. So, gradual increases. You can apply surcharges, extra little fees, think baggage and handling fees and stuff like that. Fandango, when you buy a ticket at the movies, it's the movie ticket price plus a $2 or $3 Fandango convenience fee. That's a surcharge. Diversify your product line, add some new products. enhance the product mix so that people are likely to buy more from you. Create product bundles where you can actually increase your price, make it seem to people like they're getting more stuff from you, but you're actually increasing your revenues and increasing your margins at the same time. You can also rebrand your products. You get this a lot with cereal products. Companies that are in the cereal business, if you ever notice, the box never changes, but occasionally they'll go from 23 ounces to 22 ounces, then to 20 ounces, and then they'll come out with a new and improved, and they'll bring it back to 23 ounces, and they'll charge you more because it's new and improved. So you can sort of rebrand the product. That's partly what I'm talking about there. Another thing you can do is you can focus on, oh my goodness, I put two of them in there at the same time. Well, actually, this was supposed to be a slide on cost containment strategies. Cost containment strategies, you have a number of things that you can do there. With cost containment strategies, you can focus on lowering your costs. You can improve your efficiency. You can use less expensive materials to make your product. You can redesign your product to have a lower cost of the materials that you need to produce the product. There's a number of things that you can do there too. You can, cost containment strategies. I really need to go grab another slide here. Let me quickly see if I can't open up a slide that is going to contain some cost containment strategies that I can remind myself of. I guess next time I should have these slides open in case I lose a connection to LinkedIn. Here we go, chapter 10. This is straight from a lecture that I do for my students. Let's come on down here and get these pricing strategies. Here we go. Here's a couple of other things you can do. You can anticipate your prices early and lock in your prices. A great example of this is Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines back in around 2009, 2010, there was a hurricane that came through the Gulf that knocked out a bunch of oil refineries and offshore rigs, and the cost of jet fuel went up. Well, it just so happens that happened right after Southwest Airlines had done a big fuel hedging strategy to lock in their prices. And so when the prices went up, they had already pre-purchased and committed to fuel at a low cost, and gave them a tremendous competitive advantage. Another thing that you can do is consider absorbing the cost increases. Now, you can you can just not raise your prices, but of course your margins are going to shrink. And another thing that you can do is, if you're involved in a business where you routinely offer coupons and discounts, you can get rid of the coupons and the discounts, and that can make it a lot easier. Basically, you eliminate those lower cost options to your customers. Bob, I see you keep trying to connect. I was about to click on your link and bring you in. Here you go. Let's see if I can't get Bob in here now.
Can you hear me?
And, Bob, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, sir, but I can't see you. So,
my camera, for some reason, does not believe I exist, or doesn't, or live stream doesn't believe my camera exists, even though we used it this morning. Oh, look at that!
Bob, I'm going to put your picture up, and if I could do the Monty Python thing where your mouth is talking little choppy talks, I would, but I don't have.
There you go. As long as you don't have to sing the lumberjack song.
I am a lumberjack. Okay, so Bob, you're in an industry, you're a financial advisor. Bob's both a CPA, financial advisor. He's been helping people manage and grow their money for a long time. I gave a little scenario about why I think prices have increased and why I think they're going to increase over the next couple of years. Prices in the sense of inflation-driven price increases as well as currency devaluation sort of driven price increases without trying to get you to commit to, how much or that sort of thing. Do you think I'm on the right track? Do you think I've got the market called for what the future looks like? And if so, elaborate a little bit.
Okay. Sadly, I think you're probably right. Those of us who are old enough, and I suspect, Lee, you are old enough to remember the dark days of the early 80s when inflation was through the roof. And so I don't know if we'll see that ever again, because that really spooked the Fed. But to be really cynical, we have put trillions of dollars into the economy with these stimulus programs, and the Biden administration has a significant agenda they haven't even attacked yet, like for infrastructure and things like that. And it's going to require probably borrowing money because you can only do so much in taxes. And it's, to be really cynical, I suspect the Fed would not mind having to see the government get paid back with worthless inflated dollars, where you buy a dollar now, but you're paying it back with ones reduced worth even less down the road. So I think we'll see inflation. The other thing that is important to remember is that if you look at like the consumer price index and those people who are on Social Security get almost no increases every year because they're being told there's no inflation. But if you go to the grocery store or you go to the restaurant, there is inflation. Things cost more. They've always cost more. If I have some time, let me share with you a very interesting little example. Back in the 60s, if you had $100,000 in a CD, in those days it paid 6%. That 6% would give you enough interest every year to buy a brand new Cadillac. Fast forward to today, and assuming you could get 6% on, and you couldn't get it on a CD type investment, even if you got 6% on your $100,000, that wouldn't even buy you a Vespa today. Mm-hmm. Things always cost more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I struggle getting my head around is what a more rapid inflation or devaluation. Let me pause and let me just say, I routinely tell people that if you're thinking about buying a house, go out and get the maximum size loan that you can and string it out for as long as you can, because you think about those dollars that bought those Quiznos sandwiches 20 years ago. You could buy a sandwich for $2. Now you need $6.37. If you flip it around and you used today's dollars to buy those dollars, to buy that sandwich back then, another way of looking at it is the sandwich. Let's see, I get confused thinking about this, but bottom line is $2 now relative to a sandwich is 33 cents. It's 1/3. So basically you're paying back 20 years later. If I had a fixed note where I was paying $2 a month or $200 a month, and I'm using today's dollars, theoretically, I'm really only paying back about 33 cents on the dollar because my dollars are worth less now, but the fixed note is still the same number of dollars now 20 years later. So if I'm able to increase my income and my wealth correspondent to the devaluation of the dollar, I'm literally paying things back, paying the government, paying my mortgage lender or whoever back with much cheaper money. So with that being the fact, shouldn't I want to owe as much as I can because I'm going to pay it back with cheap dollars in the future?
Well, as that famous economist Wimpy once said, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. And this certainly would apply for real estate also. I would sort of caveat what you said with two things. First of all, you want a fixed rate mortgage. You don't want an adjustable rate because it will be moving with inflation and you'll get blindsided down the road. The second thing is, and to put my financial planner hat on, that's all well and good while you're a wage earner. But what I tell my people is your retirement situation is a completely different animal. Is if at the time you retire, you have no debt. And so certainly when your younger years or you're in an income phase, taking that mortgage, using that theory to use worthless inflato dollars to pay it back is a wonderful plan. But you definitely do not want to enter your retirement with owing any kind of debt. The other thing is if you're in an industry, for example, if you work for Lockheed or one of the auto manufacturers or even an airline, you want to be careful with that, because if you get laid off and you've maxed your mortgage because you're going to be paying it back with cheap dollars, it might be much more of an issue if you don't have any dollars coming in to pay that back.
Totally legitimate caveats to the sort of the advice that I kind of routinely give people, and I do also agree that bad things can happen, and if you have this mortgage, then you're going to be out of a house because the lender will kick you out. But if we take this to a much grander scale, and you talked about the Fed basically forcing inflation or allowing inflation to be a much more significant component of our economy than it has been for the last 10 or 15 years, because the last 10 or 15 years with quantitative easing and the economic downturns that we've kind of struggled through from 9/11 to the Great Recession to to all the COVID and all this kind of stuff, presuming that that the interest rates are increase, and well, let me rephrase that. Presuming that inflation increases and devaluation occurs, and we start paying back not only the money we're borrowing, but we start paying interest on the money that we owe to foreign countries like China, because I think China, we owe more to them. I don't have the number in my mind. What is this going to mean to our relationship with a country that has the second most powerful military in the world and is wanting to have the most powerful, and a country that doesn't like us? What do you think that adds to the international relationship deterioration with China? I don't know that it was ever all that good. What does this mean for that?
Well, it's a good question. It's one of the things that always bothered me is that companies fall over themselves to do business with China and put plants there just to have their technology stolen. One interesting sort of sidebar maybe is that, or compensating control, is if we owe China tons and tons of money, it is not worth their while to destroy our economy because they end up shooting themselves in the foot. Now, admittedly, the Chinese are not below doing that because they're certainly do that to their own people. I think that I'm not so sure about that statistic about China. We do owe them a significant amount of money. We probably need to work on getting our affairs in order, because you think about the dysfunction that would happen if China got really mad at us and decided that the next Treasury refunding effort, that they decide to sit that one out, it could create huge blowback in the economy. And so our guys in Washington need to be circumspect about how much debt we're taking on and who we're borrowing it from.
Yep. Was great questions with big time implications, not just to our personal pocketbooks, and not just to our businesses, but also to our nation as a whole. So, I mean, certainly there's been plenty of conversation in the news, especially with the political season, about issues like China and all this money that we're just printing or electronically creating and giving away. But the bottom line is, if we've seen a 320% basically appreciation in the cost of a sandwich, and a 250% appreciation in the cost of residential real estate over the last 21 years, we're likely to continue to see that, or maybe even a more significant appreciation, inflation, devaluation type of thing occurring over the next 10 to 20 years. So at some point, as business owners, we're going to have to address that. In your industry, Bob, how do you confront this issue? Do you have to, as financial advisors, professionals, do you have to increase your fees, or does that just naturally sort of take care of itself in some way, shape, or form?
Well, in my industry, along with other people's industries, is extremely competitive, and fees are certainly an issue. Hang on a second, I'm getting messages. I'm sorry. Stupid technology is just failing me every turn of the road. Anyway, I was going to say, it's very competitive, and so there's a certain amount of, there's only so much you can raise fees, and probably over time you're going to have to start lowering fees as robo-advisors and things like that come into play. But one of the things, as the business model in the financial advising industry typically is a percentage of assets under management. So if you have significant stock in a person's portfolio, which nowadays you almost have to because bonds pay next to nothing, inflation typically reflects itself in increases in stock prices. So as stock prices increase, the assets under management percentage would, or the amount that you charge as a percentage of assets under management would increase also. So in some tangential way, I hope it takes care of itself. It's kind of funny math, but.
Well, that's kind of what I thought would be the case, because as you know, as inflation kicks in, one of the best ways to hedge against it is to own equity in companies, because they typically are as adept as anything is at being a hedge against inflation if you have a long enough horizon. So therefore, that mechanism works. What do you advise clients to do in terms of, when you see an inflationary period coming on? Is it just like we just talked about, to let the stock market be your best hedge, or is there some other advice that you give them?
Well, there's two things. First of all, there are stocks or funds that try to mitigate the effects of inflation as natural resources, commodities, though probably commodities as opposed to the stocks that have commodity exposure rather than buying pork bellies or something. The other thing is that the thing I see probably more often than not is after 2008, a lot of people got burned very badly. And they've stepped out of the stock market, and they've been in CDs for all this time, which means, of course, they've missed one of the great bull markets of our times. But the other thing is that they are safing themselves to oblivion, because even in this low interest rate environment, they are not keeping up with inflation. And if inflation kicks up to any extent, especially if the Fed keeps rates low, which they're inclined to do because the federal government has to repay all this debt they've taken on, they have safed themselves into oblivion. And so at some point you need to step out and think about stocks as not the evil thing that's going to lose all your money, but potentially a good hedge against inflation. And if you buy quality stocks, not necessarily any more risky than bonds, and perhaps potentially less risky because you don't have the credit risk if you buy good companies. And that's, of course, the caveat there. No GameStop allowed.
Yeah. None of that kind of tomfoolery. We are out of time. I got a late start because of the technical issues. I still am not connected to LinkedIn, so I'm going to end up having to basically download this, cut it into some 10-minute or smaller pieces, and then post it on LinkedIn, which I'll do. But Bob, I appreciate you being my guest today. It was a fun conversation. Hopefully the next time that you have time to join us, neither one of us will have the technical issues that we've had. Folks,
I look forward to that. The good news is I didn't have to clean up my office, so that worked out pretty neatly.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you, Bob, for being on today. And again, I'll reach out to you, and we'll do this another time, folks. Bob Hampton with Impart Financial Advisors. You can see impartfinancial.com is where you can go to learn more about Bob. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Take care.
We're going to go ahead and end the today's broadcast. For additional information, go to livestreamlee.com. There are resources there that you'll find interesting. And I hope to see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And I also hope to have LinkedIn live streaming like it's supposed to do. So thank you. See you later. Bye now.